So what Trump has been put in there to do, because he's a moron, you know, put aside all this bombast, the man's a moron. And he's a moron who's a narcissist and psychopath, which makes him perfect for the job he's doing now. And what you do is you get him to trash the current order, the current way of doing things, the way the world works, which was imposed after the Second World War, all the Bretton Woods Agreement and the creation of the UN and the World Bank and all these global institutions, World Health Organization, etc. You get him to trash that system, while at the same time, and just look, he's surrounded by AI oligarchs like Musk and Thiel at Palantir, Andreessen, David Sachs, and all the others. This guy at OpenAI, Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, who he's giving the American media to, Trump. He's surrounded by these people because while he's trashing the old order of the cult, they are imposing, and he is facilitating with his executive orders, the imposition of the new AI control system, the like of which humanity has in known human history never seen before, including the fusion of AI and humans, so that AI becomes the human mind. What I'm saying is, don't be fooled by this tomfoolery in relation to exploiting the Christian belief system and the Jewish belief system to gather support for what is a demonic agenda. Wider story of what's happening in Iran. Well, if we're to believe the kind of crap that I've just been laying out, then God must be full of doubt and hesitancy because of how many times they've tried to fulfill his prophecy and failed until now. And we don't know, as I speak, whether that prophecy of completely destroying Iran will be successful. Anyway, Benjamin Netanyahu has been making speeches calling for the United States to invade Iran since 1996. Now, what's that? 30 years? But now he's saying that it's been his dream, what's happening now, it's been his dream for 40 years. So that's how long this has been going on, and indeed, you go back further too. And I'm going to pick it up in the year 2000, could go back further, with a document produced in September 2000 by the Project for the New American Century in the United States, which was dominated, set up, headed by a stream of ultra-Zionists who support the plan for Israel and what Israel is doing. And in this document, they list a series of countries that they want America to invade and conquer and regime change as a result of, in the background, the agenda of Israel, which is the agenda of this global cult for which Israel is a battering ram, if you like. Now, what were these countries? They included Iraq, tick. Libya, tick. Syria, tick. And, oh yes, Iran. And the people who were behind that project for the New American Century and their front men and women, like President Boy George Bush, and especially his vice president, the brutal psychopath Dick Cheney, they came to power in November of the same year, well, that's when they were elected, and officially came to power at the start of 2001. And I've written 2 books on 9/11, which happened in September 2001, and exposed the scale of ultra-Zionist Israel involvement, fundamental, in league with various agencies and networks in the United States, and how they created the horrors of 9/11. So you have this September 2000 document calling for these countries to be, and others, by the way, to be attacked by the United States and regime changed. And then 1 year to the month later, you have 9/11, which gave them the excuse to start picking these countries off, as we saw. And Iran has always been the big one. As I show in my massive book on 9/11, The Trigger, which the first half details the lies about 9/11 and the second half details who actually did it. It weren't 19 Arab hijackers. I lay out how the whole thing was orchestrated and how the process started of picking off these countries one after the other. And if we look at Iran in general, you can pick up this sequence that's now become current events. In the early 1950s, when a guy called Mohammad Mossadegh was Prime Minister of Iran, and he nationalized the Iranian oil industry, which had been dominated basically by Britain and British Petroleum, and was giving Iranians a fraction of what the British were getting for the Iranian oil. So if you cared about the people of Iran as a prime minister, that's what you would do. You would say, well, you you're basically exploiting us and exploiting our oil, and therefore we're going to nationalize you on your bike. Well, the British and the Americans weren't having that. And through something called Operation Ajax, the CIA and MI6 and others, in league with the politicians of the time, including Winston Churchill, funnily enough, they organized a coup against Mossadegh. He was put in jail and then under house arrest to the end of his life. Nice people we're dealing with. So then they installed someone called the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran was a United States, Israel, British puppet and instigated a police state in Iran. And this included, and most demonstrably included, something called SAVAK, the Shah's secret police, in which anyone that was questioning the actions of the Shah was brutally dealt with, to say the least. Then came an Islamic revolution in 1979, which put this guy, Ayatollah Khomeini, on the throne, in effect, or as the leader. And basically, you have to see that without the brutality of the Shah and the police state of the Shah, the momentum for a brutal, often, Islamic state, a Islamically programmed state run by Islamically programmed people, that momentum would most likely not have reached the point of a revolution. Anyway, that was 1979. That's the Islamic State they're now trying to overthrow. And in 1980, 1 year later, the Americans triggered the Iran-Iraq war, which lasted for years and years. I think it was 1988 by the time it was ended. And as I show in my books, with visual evidence, if you like, Donald Rumsfeld, who was the defense secretary at the time of 9/11 and the Project for the New American Century, went to Saddam Hussein, who was the leader of Iraq at the time, and arranged for the shipment of chemical weapons, which horrifically killed enormous numbers of Iranians. It's estimated that in that period of the Iran-Iraq conflict, about 500,000 people died. This is the same America and the same Israel that now says they want to set the Iranian people free. Also, in America, who shipped himself off there with his dad after 1979 and the overthrow of the Shah, his son, the Shah's son, is now setting himself up to be the new leader of Iran, if Israel and the United States are successful in overthrowing the current Iranian regime. And what has he said? actually on the very day I'm recording this. He said that if he became leader in Iran, he would immediately recognize Israel and have peace with Israel. In other words, his dad, the Shah, was controlled by the United States and Israel, hence the brutal police state, and now he wants to do the same. So, what has happened also, and this is going back to that project for the New American Century, is that in 2007, a guy called General Wesley Clark, who was a big general in his day connected to NATO, he said that a few days after 9/11, just going back to this project for the New American Century, like I say, he went to the Pentagon and talked to a general friend of his, days after 9/11. And his friend, general, told him that they had decided to invade Iraq. And he said he was, to say the least, taken aback. Iraq? Were they involved in 9/11? Well, we don't have any evidence, but they've decided we're going to invade Iraq. He said that sometime later, some weeks later, he went back to the Pentagon, saw the same general, and asked about the invasion of Iraq. And he said, "Ooh, it's worse than that." He was told that they were going to now take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq, then Syria, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and ending with Iran. And so none of this, which is going on now, is in any way related to the justifications that they're giving you, which seem to change all the time anyway. It's what they've been trying to do. Actually, no, God's been trying to do all these decades. So, another kind of indicator is this thing called the Iron Dome. This is the missile defense system in Israel, which is taking out so many, through intercepting missiles, of Iran's attacks on Israel, both currently and in the last go, the so-called 12-day war. And still, some are getting through. But you imagine what Israel would be like now without the Iron Dome interceptor system. It would be in a state of devastation. So during the Obama administration, they handed over vast amounts of American taxpayer money to Israel to build this Iron Dome defense system. And it became operational in 2011. And any attack on Iran could not have happened before that was in place. And what Obama did was negotiate with other countries and Iran a deal which allowed inspectors to inspect the nuclear facilities of Iran to make sure they were only using it for domestic energy purposes. And it was Trump who I've been pointing out since 2016, when he was running for office the first time, is owned lock, stock, and DNA by Israel, which is why he's just doing whatever he's told now. Trump owned by the Adelson family, who've put hundreds of millions of dollars into his election campaign to get him elected. A Donald Trump whose mentor was a guy called Cohn, a ultra-Zionist mafia lawyer. Trump would not have that any other way. Roy Cohn. And his father, Trump's father, Fred Trump, was a close friend of guess who? Benjamin Netanyahu, when Netanyahu was Israel's ambassador to the UN. So we come to Trump's second term. And the whole thing has gone into overdrive. What you had, wait for this. Are you listening to this, mother, eh? Are you beaming me up yet? The two negotiators with Iran to try to get a deal and stop a war were Steve Witkoff, who is a notorious moron, known to be throughout Washington, and Trump's golf partner. Well, that's good qualification to negotiate a war not taking place. But the other negotiator, without any title whatsoever, was Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner, who is a lifelong friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, because his father, Charles Kushner, who went to jail and is a convicted felon, just like Trump, was a mate way back of Benjamin Netanyahu. And this is the convicted felon, Charles Kushner, who was pardoned by Donald Trump and now is the US ambassador to France. So you have the ultra-Zionist Jewish Steve Witkoff and the ultra-Zionist Israel to his DNA, actually more than that, Jared Kushner. And they, we are told to believe, were trying to negotiate peace with Iran. Not a chance. It was just window dressing before current events took place. So here we are now in a situation where the conflict has expanded to much of the Middle East. We've got Israel now attacking Lebanon, putting boots on the ground in southern Lebanon. And Lebanon is a country that they want to encompass into the greater Israel. And I'm seeing, staggeringly, unbelievably, shockingly, so-called MAGA influencers, those who are still going, a lot of them have thought, no, this is not what we supported. But those other MAGA influencers, the extreme ones, they're saying that Trump is bringing down the globalists. He's bringing down the world order, the new world order. No, he's not. He's bringing down the cult, global cult world order that has existed pretty much since just after the Second World War. Because if you have a status quo and nothing happens to bring it down, to dismantle it, then anything replacing it is impossible because your status quo ain't moving. So what you do is you destroy your old status quo, which served you brilliantly in its period, so that you can bring in the new status quo. In fact, the end game of AI-human fusion and AI digital total control of human society. And so what Trump has been put in there to do, because he's a moron, you know, put aside all this bombast, the man's a moron. And he's a moron who's a narcissist and psychopath, which makes him perfect for the job he's doing now. And what you do is you get him to trash the current order, the current way of doing things, the way the world works, which was imposed after the Second World War, or the Bretton Woods Agreement and the creation of the UN and the World Bank and all these global institutions, World Health Organization, etc. You get him to trash that system, while at the same time, and just look, he's surrounded by AI oligarchs like Musk and Thiel at Palantir, Andreessen, David Sachs, and all the others. This guy at OpenAI, Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, who he's giving the American media to, Trump. He's surrounded by these people because while he's trashing the old order of the cult, they are imposing, and he is facilitating with his executive orders, the imposition of the new AI control system, the like of which humanity has in known human history never seen before, including the fusion of AI and humans, so that AI becomes the human mind. So that is where we are currently. And whether it's the Christian Zionist Israel, God is making it happen narrative, whether it's all the things I've talked about in relation to the manipulation eventually of the attack on Iran, whether it's the gobshite of Trump, the thing to know is it's all fricking lies. And it's there to grasp control, hijack your perception of reality so you behave in the desired fashion. We